In the third year with him I found out I was pregnant. Clutching the ultrasound report in excitement, I was just about to demand he marry me when a barrage of comments flashed before my eyes. Does this cannon fodder Omega really think, just because he's pregnant, the main alpha will marry him? President Scott only chose him back. Then despite our real protagonist, the true young master, hasn't he realized after all this time? Raised in pampered comfort since childhood, of course his brain doesn't work too well. Who would ever marry a tool kept only to provoke his wife? If the main alpha finds out he's pregnant, he'll expose the child in his belly, then hand him over to other alphas to be played to death. Seeing those comments, I trembled uncontrollably. What was worse, after 3 unanswered calls, the phone finally connected. Daniel's cold voice came through. "What's wrong, baby?" I was in a meeting and didn't hear it. "Sorry." As always, his words were brief, detached, and faint. On a normal day, I would have teased or mocked him. But now, my hand holding the phone shook like a sieve, my voice trembling as well. "And no, nothing. Wrong number. Daniel, you should get back to work. I won't disturb you." The barrage had said Daniel hated illegitimate children the most, and hated even more those foolish lovers who tried to use them as leverage. If I mentioned my pregnancy today, Daniel, who thrived both in the underworld and the business world, would have the child destroyed, and me along with it. It sounded absurd, but I had seen the ruthless side of Daniel. Once, he had beaten a man until his face was covered in blood and his limbs crushed beyond recognition. I had stumbled into the basement by accident and nearly vomited on the spot. It was Daniel who had wiped the blood from his hands, blindfolded me, and led me upstairs. He had held me in his palm for so long that I almost forgot how nauseating that bloody scene had been. Right now, I dared not gamble. Just as I was about to hastily hang up, Daniel's dissatisfied voice sounded again. "Baby, what did you just call me?" The threatening tone made me jolt violently. I drew in a deep breath, forcing myself to act coquettish. "Husband, get back to work. I won't disturb your meeting." Daniel gave a low Only then did he hang up, apparently satisfied. And then he transferred $3 million to me, telling me to go enjoy myself. After putting away my phone, I collapsed into my chair, drenched in cold sweat. To be fair, Daniel was a very generous patron. 3 years ago, when my family discovered I was a fake young master, they erupted in fury and threw me out of the house. But my biological parents had already passed away. As the only Omega in the family, I had been spoiled since birth, sheltered from the world. Good for nothing. Other than my face, I had nothing at all. The true young master, Hudson Martin, couldn't stand seeing me squat pitifully at the gates every day. So he feigned kindness and pointed me to a path. He said I was a top-tier Omega, so beautiful, perfect for being a prostitute. He brought me to a high-class club, pointed to a group of middle-aged alphas and said, "Drink with them for a while, and you'll earn a lot of money." As an Omega, I had always been protected by my family and had never been to such a place. I really thought drinking with them could earn me money. Silly grin plastered on my face. I even told Hudson that I'd share my earnings with him. Back then, I was truly foolish. It wasn't until a pot-bellied alpha groped my waist and forced me to inhale the nauseating scent of heat-inducing pheromones that I realized money wasn't earned so easily. My hand shook and knocked over my drink. Covering my nose and mouth, I stumbled backward. Just as I pulled the door open, I crashed into an S-Class alpha. He had a striking face, his pheromones smelled divine, his abs were hard. The greasy middle-aged man behind me lunged again, and I clung to the newcomer's waist, tearful eyes pleading for rescue. Few could resist my face. He was no exception. In a few swift moves, he dealt with the alphas and carried me to the presidential suite of stairs, setting me down on the bed. Then he turned to leave. My heat had been triggered, and I couldn't afford inhibitors. My whole body burned with discomfort. Crawling, I grabbed his leg just as he was about to step out the door. The moment he picked me up with one arm, I pressed my lips to his. The alpha froze completely. When I shamelessly tugged at his pants in desperation, he finally lost control. And so, in a blur, we slept together that night. The next morning, I was devastated. So alphas, we're all beasts. My legs shaking, I tried to put on my pants and sneak away, but the alpha stirred awake. Without even opening his eyes, he called out coldly, "Simon, you think you can sleep with me and just run?" He knew me? Was he a prostitute too? Scratching my head awkwardly, I stammered, "Sorry, I don't have money to pay you right now." The alpha chuckled, sitting up with a face just as stunning as mine. His long fox-like eyes glinted with teasing amusement. "I don't need money." The air went still for 10 seconds. Just as I, muddled by lust, wanted to blurt out, "Do you want to date me?" He spoke at the same time, "You want to be with me?" I knew exactly what be with meant. Like the little actors kept by my alpha older brother, it meant being kept, hidden away. Never respectable. But back then, I had no better choice. So I followed Daniel. And that was 3 years ago. For 3 years, we had done everything a couple might do. I truly believed we were in love. So, when I learned I was pregnant, excitement filled me. I thought marriage and children would naturally follow. Until the barrage appeared, telling me that my existence was only despite Hudson. That Hudson was Daniel's destined omega, the one he truly loved. Only then did I finally understand. The reason Daniel had never spoken of the future was because we never had one. The antiseptic smell of the hospital made me nauseous. Rubbing at my sore eyes, I looked at the ultrasound one last time. This was our first child in 3 years. Given my weak constitution, it would likely be the last as well. With a hardened heart, I tore it to shreds and went to schedule an abortion. The barrage immediately protested. No way, no way. The cannon fodder's really going to abort the child. If he does, how will our true young master get jealous? How will President Scott find out and force his love? Stupid cannon fodder. Cancel the abortion now. Let the alpha come and take him. Huh? Was that even human language? Frustrated and heavy-hearted, I sat alone in the park until sunset, only returning home at dusk. The bedroom light was on. As soon as I pushed the door open, a pair of strong arms pulled me in, lips pressed against mine without warning. A few seconds were bearable, but after 5 minutes of kissing, nausea rose in me, and I hurriedly pushed him away, covering my mouth. Daniel, stop kissing me. His face instantly darkened. Bathed in the faint moonlight, he stared at me unblinking. A chill ran down my spine. I forced out a flattering smile. Husband, I don't feel too well today. This is why you went to the hospital. Daniel didn't push further. Instead, he pulled me onto the bed, wrapped me in his arms from behind, and pressed a kiss to my gland. Where does it hurt? I couldn't even bring myself to smile. Had he followed me? Thankfully, not all the way. I tossed out a lie about a stomachache, nothing serious, and he let it go. Like coaxing a child, he rubbed my stomach until we fell asleep. That night, the barrage cursed me endlessly as a mistress. After much thought, I decided I would wait until Daniel himself chose to end things. Now that he ruled West City with absolute power, I had no way of escaping anyway. And according to the barrage, Hudson would be back in just a few days to claim what was his. At the latest, 3 months. Daniel would abandon me then, to be with his destined omega for life. In the middle of the night, my nose stung inexplicably. So, while that pervert slept soundly, I kicked him in the leg. A muffled groan sounded beside me. The next morning, Daniel was leaving on a business trip. A few of his underlings were downstairs gossiping with documents in hand. Isn't this where our boss went to high school? It's also his first love's hometown. You think coming back here will stir his feelings, remind him of his white moonlight? Heh. What nonsense are you spouting? Before I could peek at the papers, Daniel's trusted subordinate, John, had already punched one of them. He turned to me with an awkward smile. Sister-in-law, don't listen to their nonsense. They're just bored after stuffing themselves. I waved it off and turned back to Daniel in the living room, insisting on accompanying him on the trip. First love. White moonlight, fine. Even if I left, I needed to know exactly how I'd been made the third wheel. We arrived in South City. Sure enough, the barrage automatically replayed their story. 7 years ago, Daniel had been framed by a mistress, kicked out of his home, and his school records transferred to the remote countryside of South City. There, he met the self-reliant, unyielding Hudson. Working part-time together, they developed mutual feelings, cherishing one another, until the college entrance exams forced them apart. Daniel, 2 years older, entered a university, leaving in pursuit of his family inheritance. Hudson dropped out, only to be discovered as the true young master, brought back to his wealthy family, and sent abroad to study until now. 3 years ago, Daniel had taken me in only to spite Hudson, who had stubbornly chosen to study abroad and abandon him. Covering my eyes, I nearly choked on the torrent of melodrama spewing across my vision. Are you unwell, baby? The Cullinan stopped steadily at the school gates. Daniel reached over to touch my forehead. Remembering the 3 years of misplaced devotion, I swallowed my bitterness, lifted my gaze, and asked, Daniel, is this where you met your first love? Where you and Hudson shared those cherished memories? His hand stilled. Looking past me, he gazed at the school for a long time, lips curving faintly with nostalgia. Yes, even though I had braced myself, the confirmation struck like a thunderclap. The barrage had been telling the truth. My head spun into chaos. So much that I didn't even hear what Daniel murmured in my ear as we stepped out of the car. Daniel had come here for business. Rumors said that in this district lived a highly respected elder, who had built a villa in his hometown to spend his remaining years in seclusion. It had taken Daniel 3 separate invitations to persuade the old man to come out. The private club was filled with clouds of aromatic smoke. Feeling nauseated, I waved John off and went alone to the restroom. After steadying myself, I stepped out only to bump into 2 alphas. One looked familiar, his right hand maimed. The other, a little younger, let his eyes roam over me with undisguised hunger, unable to look away. Well, isn't this the Omega Ian once sent me photos of? The one who later got himself tied to some big shot. I've been searching for you. Didn't think you'd be back at it again working as a whore in this club. He leaned closer, reaching out to grab me. Before I could dodge, the crippled alpha caught his shoulder, his face nervous. Mason, I advise you not to provoke him. His patron is, the alpha sneered, dismissive, and slipped me a business card. He offered me $500,000 a month if I agreed to be with him. It was true. My contract with Daniel was nearing its end. But I was not the same person I used to be. In these 3 years, Daniel had funded my college degree, enrolled me in art classes, and even taught me how to invest in stocks, guiding me step by step. So even if Daniel abandoned me, I wouldn't have to fall back into prostitution. I was about to refuse when the barrage exploded. Say yes, you stupid cannon fodder. This is your best option. So what if he's not as handsome as the main alpha? So what if he's 10 years older? At least he can protect you. Once President Scott reunites with his true young master, he'll destroy you for intruding on their happiness. If you don't find another patron, you'll die without even a grave. All the blood drained from my body. Daniel would destroy me. My gaze flicked to the empty sleeve of the man across from me, and I suddenly understood whose handiwork it was. Whoever dared to touch what belonged to him met a brutal end, even if it was an old grudge. Then I'll think about it. Hand trembling, I reached for the card, but my neck was suddenly seized from behind, cold spruce pheromones exploding around me, forcing me to meet eyes dark as ice. Baby, what did you just say you'd consider? The card slipped from my fingers to the floor. My throat tightened, my limbs heavy as lead. A wave of nausea hit me then, and I shoved him away, stumbling into the restroom to retch. When I emerged, the 2 alphas were gone. Only Daniel remained at the doorway, face thunderous, his single glance compelling me to trail after him with head lowered and faltering steps. In the car, not a soul dared to breathe too loud. Only when we pulled up to the hospital did I jolt upright, clutching the seat. I'm not going in. I won't. Daniel frowned. Then why were you throwing up? Just my stomach. I don't want another endoscopy, brother. I looked up at him, blinking rapidly, eyes filled with tears. Unable to resist my stubborn pleading, Daniel took me home. But then, he went cold. No marking, no sleeping with me. He didn't speak a word for days. Poor John, worn down with panna eyes from Daniel's temper, finally burst out while his boss was in a meeting. Sister-in-law, why do you even take that card? Do you know how much that hurt the boss, and how much trouble it caused for us? The company's been insanely busy, but he still works so hard to get that master to invest in your art exhibit, and to deal with that ex-con uncle of yours who's been harassing you, and you planning to cheat on him behind his back. I froze, the coffee cup halfway to my lips. That offhand wish I'd voiced about wanting an exhibition, Daniel had really put money into it. Even found a renowned master to help. And the uncle, who had been harassing me daily for money after getting out of prison, Daniel knew too. My chest tightened with sudden emotion, tears threatening. And just then, the barrage struck again. Idiot, he's only doing the exhibition to distract you. And he only handled your ex-con uncle for the young master's sake. None of this has anything to do with you. Damn it. Everything President Scott does for the true shoot gets stolen by this cannon fodder instead. Of course. I should have known. Daniel, you bastard. Wiping my eyes, I handed John his coffee and promised, voice trembling, I'll smooth things over with him tonight. John's body stiffened. Sister-in-law, I never meant to blame you. I didn't make you cry, honest. It wasn't me. Holla. He scampered off mid-sentence. I was left wondering how I could possibly coax Daniel. That evening, news arrived Hudson had returned to the country. Daniel claimed he had business and wouldn't be coming home that night. The barrage erupted in cheers. Finally, after 3 years, the long-awaited reunion. Of course, President Scott went to pick him up. Look at that grand entourage at the airport. Our President Scott is living out every red-eyed, waist-grabbing fantasy scene. The young master is so blessed, both parents and husband by his side. Unlike a certain someone, with no family, all alone in an empty house. Me oh. Daniel left me only cold, hard cash. How pitiful. Stupid cannon fodder, mistress. Hurry up and get out of the Scott family already. If not for you, the boss and young master wouldn't have to sneak off to a hotel right now. Me. Wait, what? They've already gotten that far. My stomach turned. I retched from sheer disgust. Fury boiling. I immediately packed up every gift Daniel had ever given me and called a friend to help sell them off. Designer clothes, luxury cars, villas. The only thing I couldn't bring myself to sell was the watch on my wrist worth 30 million. I couldn't bear to, and I didn't dare. Wow, Simon, so you've finally come to your senses. Willing to give up that old man at last. Nolan's surprised voice came over the phone. I had met him in my art classes. He was a beta from a wealthy family, with an alpha younger brother my age. The first time we met, Nolan had tried to pair me with his brother. Daniel had found out, and quietly tripped up his family's company more than once. Nolan had held that grudge ever since, which was why he couldn't stand Daniel. Choked with emotion, I managed a faint Then I asked, Nolan, you once said your brother's in the underworld. Was that true? Of course. Nolan replied without hesitation. He's thriving abroad, wealth, power, everything. And trust me, he's well built, skilled, and damn good looking too. I'm not looking for another alpha. I cut him off quickly, stopping his sales pitch. But I do want to discuss a business deal with him. The day after Hudson returned, my adoptive parents who hadn't contacted me in years called. They said Hudson was hosting a welcome banquet that evening, and wanted me to return to the old family estate. It had been 3 years since they'd cast me out, disgusted that I'd become a patron's kept lover. This was the first time they had ever reached out. Lowering my gaze to the 9-figure balance in my account, I decided to take a portion with me. I would repay them at least for the years they had raised me. The banquet was lively, filled with society's daughters, glasses clinking as laughter mingled in the air. Surely, Daniel would also make an appearance. Keeping my eyes from strain, I crouched in a corner with a champagne flute, waiting silently. My plan was simple. Once my adoptive parents finished hosting Hudson, I would repay them and leave. But the banquet had only just begun when a group of wealthy heirs surrounded me. In that shadowed corner, well, the fake young master who played whore for others. Their looming shadows swallowed me. Glancing around, I saw no cameras. All the guests were gathered near the champagne tower. No one would notice what happened here. Gripping my glass tightly, I tilted my head up and forced a smile. Looking for me. One of them arched a brow. We heard you stole Hudson's identity back then, and later stole his alpha too, becoming his lover. Don't tell me you actually. Before he could finish, I flung my drink into his face. I tried to shove them away and run, but against 8 hands, I was dragged back. Bitch! A stinging slap landed hard across my cheek, but the noise of the banquet drowned it out. Alpha pheromones, chaotic and mixed, began to seep through the air, pressing down until I could barely breathe. They ignored my struggles, laughing crudely. Who knows how many alphas this rag has slept with, still pretending to be pure. Pathetic whore. Crushed beneath the suffocating pheromones, I gasped for breath. Through a gap in the crowd, I spotted a familiar silhouette. My throat tightened, ready to call for help, but the sound died. At Daniel's side stood Hudson, surrounded like a star among stars. He turned and smiled at me, deliberately blocking Daniel's gaze. I already knew why my adoptive parents had asked me here tonight. The barrage confirmed it. He stole 20 years of wealth and even stole her husband. Getting beaten is the least he deserves. The young master's right to punish this imposter. Yeah, what's this face pretending to be innocent for? Even if he cries for help, President Scott won't care. I hadn't expected Daniel to save me anyway. The alpha sneered venom, telling me once the banquet ended, they'd take turns with me. What the fuck are you smiling at? Noticing my expression, they finally realized what they'd forgotten: my phone. When they first cornered me, I had been on a call with Nolan. It was still in my pocket. By now, Nolan had already recorded everything and called the police. When they yanked out my phone, they were cursed out over the line. 3 minutes later, the police alerted by the recording would arrive to arrest them for attempted assault. The brainless alphas grew frantic, raising a hand to slap me again. But the strike never landed. A bottle shattered against one man's skull. He clutched at his bleeding head, only to be overwhelmed by a crushing wave of spruce pheromones. In the face of an S-class alpha's absolute dominance, he fell to his knees. Around us, every alpha winced under the weight of it. And when they saw who it was, saw that terrifying expression, no one dared to speak. Daniel's eyes were red as he swept me into his arms. Seeing my handsome face marred by swelling, he choked up, his voice rough. Sorry. I came too late. Curled against his chest, I caught sight of Hudson, fist clenched tight. The barrage sneered. He only saved you because they fought. You're just part of their couple's play. I laughed bitterly. So I was just a prop in their play. Fine, let me piss Hudson off until he choked. Clutching Daniel tightly, I wailed into his chest, crying and sobbing as though my heart were breaking. They said they'd gang rape me, then chop me into pieces and throw me into the sea. Daniel, my face hurts so much, who will stand up for me? My cries turned the entire banquet upside down. My adoptive parents rushed over to scold me, only to be shoved aside by Daniel. He kicked those alphas several times before turning coldly to John. When the police released them, dragged them all to the basement. As we left, I saw Hudson's face pale as paper. I stuck my tongue out at him and at the barrage before burrowing pitifully into Daniel's arms. As his pheromones calmed me. This fool could play the victim all day long. At the hospital, after the checkup and a suppressant injection, Daniel's mood was like a storm cloud. Too late. I realized he might come after me for payback. Shrinking into the back seat, I wilted into silence, kicking pebbles with my head down as we entered the house. Just as I was considering the 100th way to survive, Daniel caught me. He pinned me against the door and sank his teeth into my gland, pouring his pheromones into me in an act of retaliation. Only when my body was entirely saturated with a spruce scent did he let go. Leading me to the bedroom, he revealed a box of green grape cakes, my favorite, and notoriously difficult to find. He unwrapped them, cut a piece himself, then held it to my lips. His voice was uncharacteristically gentle. Cold War's over, baby. Okay, I froze. In the past, when he'd gone to hard in bed, he used to coax me like this. Was this the same? Was he only doing this now to keep me from running away too soon because he still needed me? As part of their little play. The buried bitterness welled up again. Rubbing my eyes, I bit down hard and buried my face, wolfing down the cake. Daniel chuckled, fondly tugging the back of my neck like I was a pet. Slow down. No one's going to steal it. Like a sulky beagle, I tried to argue through tears. But before I could swallow the cream, nausea overtook me. Clapping a hand over my mouth, I rushed to the bathroom, retching dryly. Daniel handed me water, pulling out his phone to call the family doctor. I stopped him. His hand froze. Lifting his deep, cold eyes to mine, he demanded, "Simon, are you pregnant?" The air froze instantly. I shivered, springing up in denial, shaking my head wildly. How could I possibly be pregnant? Honey, did you forget? The doctor said it himself, I'm 90% infertile. What could I be carrying, an egg? Ah. A flicker of doubt passed across Daniel's face, but it quickly vanished. He nodded. True. During my medical exams, both Chinese and Western doctors had concluded my body was poorly suited for pregnancy. Even as a so-called top-tier omega, my fertility was no better than that of a defective one. That was why, for 3 years, he had dared never to use protection, filling me night after night without worry. Daniel didn't dwell on it further. He simply watched me swallow a handful of vitamins disguised as stomach medicine, then pulled me into his arms to sleep. He had never forced me when I was unwell. Seizing his good mood, I even put in a few kind words for John. Daniel bit at my gland and hummed in response. The next day at noon, I finally stirred awake. As soon as I came downstairs, John bounded up, beaming. He told me Daniel had lifted the punishments on the company, and that he himself had been assigned to me as my assistant for the art exhibition. Sis-in-law, you and the boss better make up and never fight again, her. He kneaded my shoulders like a sycophant. I rubbed my forehead and smiled bitterly. There really wouldn't be any more fights, because soon I wouldn't be their sister-in-law anymore. The exhibition went smoothly. With the master in attendance, crowds poured in. Daniel wanted to sell my paintings at sky-high prices, but I knew my own worth. If the pieces were priced too high, it would only look like money laundering. So I quietly changed the price tags. Nolan came as well. Seeing what I'd done, he gave me a smack on the head, exasperated. You're about to leave, and you're still worried about saving face for that old man. Don't you get it? Most people are only buying because of Daniel. You should rake in as much as you can now, it'll make running away easier. I thought about it. He had a point. But maybe I was just pathetic. I still didn't want to cause Daniel trouble. So the prices stayed low until the afternoon. Then for alphas crippled, bruised, faces swollen pushed through the door, they insisted on paying 500 times the price. Paintings that should have been worth only a few thousand, they bought for millions. One mute even dropped to his knees, begging me to sell. Though their faces were distorted, I recognized them. They were the same rich heirs from Hudson's banquet. The loudest among them now had no tongue. No doubt, buying paintings was Daniel's final punishment for them. I sold the works as they demanded. When they left, Nolan happily counted the money. By rights, I should have been glad that Daniel had avenged me, but a chill ran down my spine, leaving me unable to smile. And when I caught sight of the barrage, my stomach twisted violently. I vomited until my vision swam. Already weak with nausea, my sight darkening. The barrage only grew louder. Here it comes, the long-awaited drugged forced love scene. Tonight President Scott's in heat, they'll be at it again. How? Doesn't anyone think the shoe's being cruel? The cannon fodder and the alpha aren't even broken up yet. And the alpha, what a bastard. Cheating already. If you don't like it, get out. The story was tagged with forced love from the start. What did you expect? He's just cannon fodder anyways and will be even worse than those alphas. My hands trembled as I took the glass of water Nolan offered, lowering my gaze, seeing my pallor. He sent me home early. Outside, storm clouds pressed low, suffocating. The truth was, Hudson had come to me yesterday. He said exactly what the barrage did, that he understood Daniel better than I ever could. He urged me to leave, before Daniel's affection soured into hatred. But the barrage refused to vanish. It haunted me into the night, forcing me to witness 101 versions of my own gruesome death. A streak of lightning split the sky. A sharp click. The door opened. Footsteps, Daniel's. But why was there a stench of blood, thick and metallic, mingling with the rain? I couldn't tell whether it was water dripping, or blood, or whose blood it was. Baby, come out. His voice was hoarse, like a starving beast prowling in the storm, ready to pounce and kill. With the barrage in mind, I dared not move. When the covers were ripped away, I trembled violently. His spruce scent flooded the room, oppressive and overwhelming. Daniel's brow creased as he gripped my face in a blood-slick arm, veins bulging, forcing me to meet his eyes. Baby, are you afraid of me? Tears spilled down my cheeks. His pheromones terrified me into sobbing, but still I shook my head desperately, opening my mouth to deny it. Before I could speak, his lips crushed against mine. He didn't kiss like a man who'd casually taken an amiga before. His mouth was urgent, frenzied, almost violent. Thank God it wasn't to kill me. My breath came ragged. Reason returned for an instant. Through the flash of lightning outside, I glimpsed his arm. Daniel, you're hurt. It's fine. Won't kill me. In his heat, the alpha bit my gland roughly, flooding me with pheromones as he buried his face in my neck. Take it off. The force of it compelled me to obey. By the time my body was trembling, overwhelmed, lungs struggling for air, a dazed thought surfaced. Would the child survive this too? Damn it. President Scott quarreled with the young master again, then went home to use the substitute instead. Don't get cocky, cannon fodder. He's only doing this because he's in heat. Once he regains clarity, he'll feel filthy, regret it, and kill you. So, I was just a substitute. When he whispered baby, who was he calling? Tears streamed down my face before I realized it. Daniel froze mid-movement. Why are you crying again? The hand at my waist lifted, reaching to wipe them away, but I stubbornly turned aside. Get out. Did I hurt you? I'll be gentler. Daniel, I hate you. He mistook it for flirtation, smiling as he kissed my tears away. Then I'll keep going until you say you love me. I couldn't remember how those 3 days ended, passing out and waking and passing out again. My reproductive cavity hadn't been ruined into miscarriage. This child was lucky. On the 4th night, while Daniel was still holding me in his sleep, I painstakingly wriggled free and climbed out of bed. The barrage warned me, once Daniel regained clarity, he would kill me. For the sake of survival, I injected myself with several stimulants, packed a suitcase, and prepared to run. The luxury cars and designer goods I'd never used had already been liquidated into cash long ago, without Daniel noticing. So apart from money, I carried little else. This video is an original work of the YouTube channel Bamboo Shadows, and is published exclusively on this channel. Please don't re-upload or share it on other channels. Just before leaving the villa, my phone buzzed with a message from the hospital. The abortion appointment I had scheduled last month had been postponed until tomorrow. It was my final chance to delay it. I looked at Daniel one last time, tucked the quilt around him, and walked out the door toward the hospital. After being drugged and colliding with his heat, Daniel woke the following night in the middle of a nightmare, bloody and terrifying. He reached instinctively for me in bed. His hand found only emptiness, cold and void of warmth. Raindrops ticked steadily off the terrace. The air froze into ice. At 3 in the morning, Daniel woke John from sleep and sent his men flooding through West City in search of me. He blew up my phone. It stayed off. He scoured every place I might have gone. Nothing. Finally, John handed him a report with trembling hands, voice quivering like a quail. Boss, sister-in-law found out she was pregnant last month, and crash. The glass ashtray shattered into fragments at John's feet. Daniel lifted his head, stunned, enunciating each word. What did you say? John drew a deep breath. bracing himself like a soldier about to die, and shouted, "She's pregnant." She booked an abortion at the Central Hospital under a friend's name. She converted all her assets into cash and ran away with the money and the child. "Boss, I'm so sorry." Daniel closed his eyes. Even grinding his teeth to shards, the darkness in his gaze didn't abate. Still, he stubbornly corrected, "Ran away. No. He's just playful. He went out to have fun and got lost. Keep searching. Raise the bounty to 30 million. I don't care if you dig 3 feet into the ground, bring him back. Find him." At the hospital gates, a bearded, limping middle-aged man clung to my leg like a leech, refusing to let go. He shouted, "Simon, your ex-husband crippled me. Either take me abroad and support me, or come back and split the 30 million reward with me." His tugging left me dizzy. It had already been 2 days. This ex-gone uncle of mine had discovered I'd left Daniel, had been clinging to me relentlessly. Nolan told me to kill him, but I couldn't. Yet if I didn't leave now, it really would be too late. My head throbbed as I was about to give in when something small hit the ground at our feet. Patrick the ex-con was struck at the back of the head. He roared, then turned only to turn meek as a quail when he saw who it was. I met that gaze too, pupils contracting. I spun to run, but in an instant, the entire hospital was surrounded. Patrick, scrambling on the ground, froze with a gun to his skull, and Daniel advanced step by step, the pressure of his presence chilling the air. His shadowed eyes pinned on me like nails. His voice was icy. "Simon, I know you're pregnant. Come back." My hands shook harder. I had expected Daniel to uncover the pregnancy, but not that he'd find me so swiftly. I thought I'd at least make it abroad, to the protection of Nolan's underworld brother, before Daniel caught up. But remembering the barrage flashing scene after scene of my grisly deaths, despair crushed me. So, when Daniel reached to grab me, I yanked out a dagger and pressed it against my throat. "One more step, and I'll do it, Daniel." The barrage insisted death would be too easy for me. He would never allow it. And for the first time, Daniel's composed mask cracked. Fear twisted across his face as he ordered his men to back off. He stood frozen, stricken, in his eyes anguish, bordering on grief. I laughed bitterly, tears streaking down. "I've followed you for 3 years. Please, Daniel, just let me go. I swear I'll never bother you again. I'll disappear from your life forever, quiet as if I were dead." Daniel stared, stunned. The pain on his face dissipated, replaced by shearing comprehension. "What are you talking about, Simon? What do you mean by us? Me and who? What kind of nonsense have you been listening to?" But before he could finish, a clueless Amiga pushed through the crowd, clinging to his arm and muttering, "You finally come around. You believe in the system now. Hudson." Daniel froze again. His eyes flicked between Hudson and my face twisted with scorn. 3 seconds later, he drew his gun, silencing Hudson with a shot. Chaos erupted. Daniel shook off Hudson, wounded in the arm, and tried frantically to explain to me. But Hudson clung to him desperately, holding him back. I stumbled away, knife pressed to my own throat, until a random alpha caught me by the collar and dragged me off in the confusion. On the private jet, Nolan sighed heavily. After hearing the story of Daniel and Hudson, he regretted not letting Owen charge into the fray and fight Daniel to the end. Owen, polishing his pistol until it gleamed, nodded grimly in agreement. I flushed with embarrassment. Thankfully, we had fled quickly had Owen gone head-to-head with Daniel. They might have torn each other apart, especially when the police station was just 1 street from the hospital. Still, thank you both. It was only thanks to Nolan's foresight that we escaped smoothly today. The original plan had been simple. I hired Owen as my bodyguard for abroad. They were supposed to meet me there, not in the middle of the chaos. Nolan waved it off, then asked, if Daniel loves Hudson so much, why did he shoot him today? I glanced at the barrage. They were exploding in fury, calling the story broken, incoherent. No one explained. Their focus had finally shifted from how Daniel will kill me to how far out of character Daniel can go. I lowered my head, flipping through the doctor's notes on pregnancy care, and ignored them. That night, after leaving the Scott estate, I sat in the obstetrics department all night. I had truly intended to wait until the doctor came on duty in the morning and go through with the procedure. But when it was finally my turn in line, my feet felt rooted to the ground. Hesitation and bitterness weighed heavily in my chest. I admit when the doctor said, "You'll most likely never have another child," my heart softened. That single moment of weakness made me abandon the surgery. It was just a child. How hard could it be to raise one, even without an alpha father? Modern medicine could provide everything. My baby wouldn't lack love or care. So I decided I would raise this child on my own. After landing in Country M, all the troubles back home seemed to fade away. Even the barrage fell silent. I rested in an apartment I had prepared in advance. For my safety, Owen and his men stayed in the neighboring unit. Whenever I went out to paint, they followed close behind. Nolan was the same as ever, always trying to play matchmaker, pushing Owen toward me. My refusals were useless, and Owen's face only grew darker. One weekend, they dragged me to the movies. When Owen was once again accidentally pushed next to me, he finally lost his temper. He left me with one of his men, grabbed Nolan, and hauled him away. The next morning, Owen walked out of Nolan's bedroom. I froze. You too, yeah, slept together. My pupils shook. But not related, Owen said coolly, one brow arched. Now, my brother won't say stupid things about alphas and omegas being destined anymore. That night, Nolan stormed back to the country in anger. 2 weeks passed. Abroad, Daniel hadn't gone mad as I had imagined. He hadn't even made a move to look for me. Perhaps he and Hudson were already living the so-called happy life the barrage described. A trace of loneliness flickered in my heart, and I slowly let my guard down. The next day, I went out sketching with only Owen at my side. The wind by the lake was strong. I sneezed. Owen, gentlemanly as always, draped a coat over my shoulders. I smiled politely, just opening my mouth to thank him, when a bullet whizzed past, grazing the back of his hand and cutting off the gesture. I froze in place, turning stiffly. I saw Daniel, eyes as cold as iron, dragging a half-dead Hudson and tossing him to the ground. Simon, he demanded hoarsely, pressing the gun to Hudson's head. Is this the first love you claimed was my white moonlight, my future lover? His voice broke into near hysteria. If I kill him with my own hands, will you finally believe I love you and not him? Panic seized me as I rushed to stop him. The barrage, silent for so long, boiled over again. What the hell is this plot? Wasn't this supposed to be a sweet romance? How can the main alpha do this to the shoe? Will this even have a happy ending? He'll definitely chase his wife later. Right now he's just confused. One day, he'll kill this imposter instead. I'd kill you all before I ever kill him. Daniel suddenly glared up at the glowing words in the sky. Rage blazing, he fired a shot at them, then turned back to me, voice breaking. Baby, I know what you've been seeing these past days. But it's all a misunderstanding. Let's talk. Please. My mind went blank. He knew everything. Talk. Could we really? I was about to answer when Owen stepped in front of me, his warning sharp. You can't go to him. Daniel's gaze darkened, but he didn't push it. With a single gesture, he had someone dragged out. Nolan. He cursed furiously, screaming at me not to give in. Not to let my love-blinded heart be handed over. Daniel ignored his insults. Turning coldly to John, he ordered, shut him up. With your own mouth, everyone froze. John panicked. Be boss, I like omegas. I can't. Raise your salary. John turned immediately. Seeing he was truly about to obey, Owen couldn't stay still any longer. Stop. Half releasing the bruised grip on my arm, he demanded through clenched teeth. Swear you won't hurt him. Daniel sneered. Would you hurt your own wife? Owen's face twisted, but he let go. And I was shoved straight into that suffocating spruce scent. Maybe it was the pheromones, maybe something else. But the moment Daniel's arms closed tightly around me, my tears spilled uncontrollably. Daniel brought me back to his villa in Countryham. There, I finally met the so-called master he had mentioned. A mysterious man who could draw talismans, allowing him to see and even dispel the barrage of comments. Before banishing those vicious words, Daniel explained the misunderstandings of the past. Every time he had met Hudson, it hadn't been a secret tryst, it had been for revenge. The airport blockade. Retribution for nearly being tricked 3 years ago. Their later meeting? Vengeance for the humiliation I had suffered at the welcome banquet. As for Hudson leaving the country 3 years ago, it had only been to avoid the fallout. He has a system, Daniel said, his voice low. It kept telling him that he and I were destined as the main couple. So he clung to me since high school. But I never agreed to him. If I had known his existence would cause you so many misunderstandings, I would never have kept him around. But Simon, I told you long ago you were my first love. I love you. Faced with his gaze wronged, more than even Dewey herself, I swallowed hard, suddenly guilty. When did you ever say that? The first time you asked me if South City was where I met my first love. That time, I had been drowning in grief, convinced I was nothing but a third wheel, a stand-in. I hadn't listened to a word of his memories. Shame and guilt surged through me. I twisted the hem of my clothes and lowered my head. I'm sorry. Daniel didn't hold my recent reckless behavior against me. He caught my hand and slowly slid something cool onto my ring finger. I never brought up love before because I was afraid you'd reject me outright. I thought if I gave it time, feelings would grow. Dropping to one knee, he kissed the back of my hand where the ring now rested. So now, Will you believe that I truly want to love you? The day the barrage was driven out, they exploded in outrage. Wait, so I shipped the wrong couple from the start? They didn't go to the hotel to sleep together. They went to fight. Guess it was too bloody and violent. So they censored it. We all misunderstood. Damn it. Why does this cannon fodder get everything? He was supposed to be hated, to die miserably as a foil. The summary doesn't match the story at all. This is outrageous. I looked away. What was more outrageous was that the master was about to roast them all. The night we returned home, Daniel cooked for me himself. Steamed crab, hawthorn, and brown sugar porridge, nourishing broth. He even lifted the bowl to feed me by hand. I stared in shock. Daniel, you. So he didn't want the child after all. But Daniel paused, then suddenly set the bowl down. Pulling me into his arms, his voice choked. Even if this child is gone, we can always have more. It's all right. Did you not listen properly when John gave his report? I didn't dare listen too closely. What do you mean? This entire table of food, it's all things the doctor said were forbidden during pregnancy. I cupped his face, pretending to pout. Or is it, husband, that you don't want this baby at all? You actually mean to? He silenced me with a kiss, one hand pressing against my stomach. When he felt the steady rhythm of life within, he finally pulled back, stunned. So that day, you didn't go through with it. Congratulations, President Scott, you're finally going to be a real father. At last, the voices were gone. No barrage. No doubts, only Daniel's arms around me and the faint heartbeat within me. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to believe. Maybe love, even ours, could endure.